half jealous. I mean, I wish that the divisions that I had been a part of over the last 10 years had gotten the women together so that we could meet each other and learn from each other. So I think what you guys have here is a pretty awesome opportunity. So is that going to keep jumping around there, Melora? Thanks. Okay, so we're going to show you our product and talk a little bit about the team, but Asta asked me to talk about, kind of give you a glimpse into my life and the things that, just my past and about my career at Microsoft. So I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to start at the beginning, but I won't go into too much detail there. I grew up in a very small town in California, 13,000 people, very conservative, very much a small community. And at an early age, I was, there are a few things that in hindsight that were very telling. All through grade school, I was very interested in theater and being in front of people. And at the same time that I was very interested in that, I also, Melora laughs about this all. Does everybody know Melora, who works for me? She's also doing the demo. I'm introducing you. I didn't just play with dolls. I played Office. That was my favorite game. So I would, set up Office, and everything would be, I would be in control. If I had my friends over, I was the one that was in charge. I was the office manager, and that was my favorite great game of all. And then in the 3rd grade, I told my mom, Mom, I am leaving, and I'm going to go move to New York and work there. And she said, okay, sweetheart. And I went on, and I never knew that until one day when I left home and I moved to New York and started working, which we'll get to into a minute. Then there came a point in life where I think that I got kind of conditioned by society, the town that I grew up in. And I think those were kind of my junior high and high school years. And by the time I was leaving high school, I was the person that was voted most likely to get married and have babies. And there is nothing wrong with that. And I am married and have a baby. But it was a pretty big change, I think, from my spirit that I had exhibited when I was young. And I think a lot of that was the influences, the expectations of women that my community had, and the options that were presented to me. Like, I didn't even think about going away to college. I was maybe going to go to a community college, and that was a big deal. But it wasn't. I didn't think about those being options. It wasn't that my family didn't have the money to send me to university. It just wasn't something that women did. And I'm not that old. So, how old am I? 32, 33. So it's not like I'm from, grew up in the Stone Age. Then something happened when after I graduated from high school, and it was devastating to me. My dad was an entrepreneur. And my family had a lot of love and influence in the community. And I grew up in this really pretty amazing environment. And my family lost everything. My dad we went through bankruptcy. We moved out of a huge house that my dad had built himself. We lost everything, including, I saw how friends turn on people when you change. And at the same time, I got in a car accident, and it was devastating. I sank into a deep depression, and I wouldn't talk to anybody. And at one point, I would have been 19 years old, I woke up, and I realized, okay, this is my life. I have to make my decisions. I have to take my responsibility myself, and this is my destiny that I'm going to create for myself. The next day, literally, I broke up with my boyfriend that I was going to get married to, right? Remember, I was just voted. I moved out of the house, got my own place. Not the next day I moved out of the house, but I got my own place, and I enrolled in university. And my parents were very supportive through this whole time of me. And especially my dad, I think I really have the spirit of my father. And there were some lessons that he taught me in those early years through this experience that I think define who I am today at work and at home. And some of the 3 lessons that really stick out to me are success is picking yourself back up when you fail and trying again. That's really something that I learned from my father. Second is, you shouldn't be afraid to get your hands dirty. There's no job that's beneath you. You do what needs to get done, right? You get in there and work hard. I really learned that from my father. And the third was, don't let the short-term obstacles and hurdles get in the way of your long-term vision. That'll be what's worth, that's what you need to do. And you just go do it because you can do it if you want to. Right? And those three things that I learned from my dad, that is who I am. So I went to university, I enrolled in the business school, and I hated technology. I was the kid that I never showed up for my class, my computer classes and the business courses. So I kept dropping out and re-enrolling. When I was in high school, I would be the kid that always had an excuse to get out of the technology class. I hated it. In fact, I was just telling Melora on the way here that I interviewed somebody for a job just last week. And I said, well, what are you passionate about? And he said, I am really passionate about the way people interact with computers. And while he said that to me, I realized something about myself. I already knew that I was completely not passionate about how people interact with computers. I am passionate about how people interact with people. And that's kind of all my job at Microsoft is giving people a way, to interact with each other. But that started very early on. So how did I get into this industry? It actually started in college, and my first networking experience happened really early on. And this is kind of hindsight. I didn't know that this was networking, and that's usually how networking happens, is you don't plan it, you need to be open to it, and you meet people. So my first year of college, every town has a drag strip, right, where kids cruise. I was cruising one night with my girlfriends. I only cruised one night. I met this guy. We never dated, but we became fast friends. 3 years later, his mom died, and I wanted to be at the funeral because I thought it was important to support my friend, but I didn't want to go by myself. So I go to my girlfriend and say, I know you know this guy that knows Eddie that will probably go to his mom's funeral. Can you give me his phone number? Because I'm going to call him and see if I can go with him so I don't have to sit by myself. She said, sure. I made a phone call. And I went with this guy. 3 weeks later, this guy was offering me a job at IBM. Not because I liked technology, but because I liked theater. And they needed somebody that could be on university campuses to talk about how computers, just educate people on computers at that point. It was right when Windows first came out, so people were really using them versus just technologists, right? So I took this job and loved it because it was all about connecting with people. And I went from the person that was dropping my computer class every chance I could get to the person that was teaching the computer classes for professors once a semester. I'd go in and educate people, and I was so passionate about what people could do with this technology. So that was my first experience with networking. I also had my first experience of, how should I say this, my first gender experience in a job at IBM. So I excelled in this job at IBM, and my boss calls me one day and says, Tammy, you are really good, and we want to have you go teach other people how to do what you do. And I say, okay, I'm there. They sent me to Utah to meet with 10 men that all had suits. They were in college, right? They were so well groomed and so articulate and so, they were blonde and I just can't express the room that I walked into. And I did my job. I told them how I did it. I helped. I gave them lessons. We had a workshop. That was great. I went home. And about a year, see, I didn't know that this was what was happening at the time, but sometime afterwards, my boss said, this must have been years after, one of the reasons we sent you was because we knew these men would not want a woman like you to show them up. So you'd kick them in the ass, right? Just by nature of being there. And putting you up as an example of somebody that had been successful. I wasn't mad about it at all. I think in hindsight, what I think about that was, God, I'm glad that I did that for myself. And I think that there's interesting opportunities and interesting challenges that women have in a corporation, and we have to be willing to embrace who we are and not be, angry about it. So that was kind of my first gender experience. I also had the first experience in college related to my career about making things happen for yourself. While I was working at IBM, I decided that the place I wanted to work was Microsoft, because Microsoft was the company that made this great software, and I could care less about the PCs that IBM made. I cared about what you could do with them. So at the time I graduated, it was very hard for new campus grads to get jobs. And so back to my networking story. I was at IBM. I decided I wanted to go to a conference, and I couldn't afford to pay for it. So I said, I'll get my boss to pay for half, and then I'll call Microsoft and get them to pay for half, and then I can go. So I found out who the person at Microsoft was that managed the IBM relationship. And I called him and said, here's what I want to do. Will you pay for it? And he said yes. So I went and did this thing. The guy that I called, his name was Rob. I continued to be in touch with Rob over the next couple of years, and we developed a friendship. He lived in New York, and I lived in California. And it was time for me to graduate, and I called Rob and said, I really want to work for Microsoft. And he said, well, if you're ever out here, let me know, and I'll set you up. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be out there next month visiting a friend that lives in Boston, and I can come through New York no problem at all, which was totally not the case. I did have a friend there, but I was not planning the trip. So he said, great, let me know. So I book my trip, and I go to New York, and I show up at their office, and this is the only reason that I'm there, is to talk to Rob, who's supposed to set me up with an important person at Microsoft that may be able to get me a job. That's all I know. So I walk into this interview, and the guy said, and it's the general manager in charge of that of New York district office, and he says, well, I don't know why you want a job here. I only have one job here, and it sucks. I mean, he's like really bad. He is very harsh language. He said, it's part-time, it pays like shit, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I just don't understand. And I said, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then you'll probably understand why I want to work here. In fact, I created this PowerPoint presentation about myself. Maybe we can go through that. And he turned white and said, yeah, let's do that. So we put it on his computer. And by the way, Rob had told me that Microsoft does this thing called touch, turn, and talk. So does anybody remember that? Oh, God, it is frightening. But it's the way you were supposed to give presentations. So he went through my slides. He made sure that they obeyed the touch, turn, and talk rules, which everybody had been trained on, and the manager would have known. So we went through this, and at the end, the GM said, when you graduate from college, you call me, and and you can come work for me. I called him a few months later, got a job, moved to New York. So hence my career at Microsoft, and that was really my first experience of, I am going to make this thing happen for myself. So I joined Microsoft, and I can divide up my experience at Microsoft basically between missions and jobs. I've either had one or the other. And usually I'm on a mission, and if I have a job, it's only to get me to the rest of the mission, right? Like a bridge, and I'll explain what I mean. kind of the patterns in my job, in all my jobs, is that everything that I've done has been about the customer and come from some connection about what the customer wants and giving them that thing. And everything I've done has been hard. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that. I think now I make more conscious choices about what I want to do that's hard, because it takes a lot of energy and emotion and personal investment to do hard things. But I haven't stopped yet, and I keep thinking maybe I should, but I don't think that's going to happen. So in terms of the mission, my mission coming to Microsoft was I wanted to come to a place, I wanted to change the world. Right? And that didn't mean, at the beginning that meant, how can I touch 2 people? How can I help 2 people or 1 person do something that they couldn't do before? Today, what that means in my job is I want to help millions and millions and millions of people do something that they can't do. But my mission has stayed the same, even though the manifestation of that has changed over the years. My first mission was when I spent a year and a half in New York, and then I came out here. And my first mission really was around giving kids getting kids to use laptop computers in school full time. So it's one-to-one, not you go to a lab. Technology is kind of integral to the learning process in this scenario. And the parents paid for it. It wasn't a grant from Microsoft. It wasn't. There was no kind of charity donation, and it was very controversial at the time because, well, I'll summarize it by this. Bill thought it was the craziest thing we could ever do because we were going to ruin democracy. The cornerstone of education, the cornerstone of democracy is free education. And the minute you make technology as essential as a pencil in the classroom and the school isn't going to pay for it, the parent has to pay for it, you have the haves and have-nots, and the have-nots cannot get the same education that the haves have, right? And you ruin democracy, because you've ruined the cornerstone of democracy, right? Okay, so that's what we were up against. So, I ended up getting funding anyway, and everybody thought that I was crazy. And I got a new boss, and I had to decide how passionate I was about this thing. How important did I think it was? Was it important enough to lose my job? And I cannot tell you how that was not a theoretical question. I have had to ask myself that question multiple times in my career, including recently multiple times. But it was not theoretical, and I decided, yes, this was so important that I will do it, and I will leave Microsoft if I can't. And to make a long story short, that all worked out. We did a great thing. And it sparked my curiosity for the project that I'm doing now. What I saw through that experience is that kids that have technology full time, that it is so natural to them, it's like an extension of the air that they breathe. They think differently. They need different things. They desire different things. They have different fears or lack of anxieties relative to how I feel about technology or people that didn't grow up with it. So that really sparked my curiosity, and eventually my curiosity has led me down the path to where I am today. But when I was done with the laptop program, it wasn't done, but I was exhausted. And I decided, and there was a point where we actually launched the program, and it was such a moving experience because all these executives were there, and they were so amazed by what had happened. And it wasn't just the what that had happened, but it was how it all had happened, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in terms of this NetGen project. But the how is what made magic. You can get things done, but can they be magical? Magical is I think it's about the how. It's the combination of the two. So at that point, I knew that I could not continue to change the world in an increasing way unless I got some management experience. And I had made some real mistakes through, oh my God, that's my mobile phone. How embarrassing. I don't even know where it is. Sorry. what was I saying? Oh, I made lots of mistakes. Dismal mistakes. And I thought people that worked for you were people that were to get that job done. But I was really mistaken. I thought that they were there to accomplish the objectives. And at some point I realized that probably because I did such a dismal job, I realized that my job as a manager was not about getting the right people to do a job, right? I needed to care about these people and care about what they wanted to do and see if, we're on the same path and it's a match and it's not just about objectives. Well, that's probably obvious to all of you. It wasn't when I first became a manager. So my next step was to get some management experience, and I took a job that had business objectives. It was just, core Microsoft. It was so traditional, and it was so not me, but it was exactly what I needed to do to keep moving on. And I did it with all the gusto I had. And then when I was done, I continued on the mission. And I didn't know it was a mission. And this laptop, basically I ended up in this NetGen project. So the way this happened was I started researching these kids that grew up with the internet, trying to understand them, and then I decided that my job at the company should be to tell the company what to do. Not just a division of the company, but the entire company. So over a 2-year period of time, I studied the customer, and I've worked for probably half the VPs in the company, just kind of saying, you should fund this for a while, and then I'd go work for them, and then when they get tired of it, I'd go get somebody else to fund it. At one point, we decided that it became clear that we needed to create products for them. And that's when, actually, I hired Melora. She joined my team. That was 2 years ago. And we've kind of been on this NetGen project ever since. It's gotten killed so many times, I can't even tell you. Probably, at least half a dozen. And one of the things that I've learned in terms of a role as a leader is you have to decide how much energy you're going to give something. And because making hard things happen requires a lot of tenacity. And I can remember a specific time. It was actually the last time this project got killed. And I was exhausted. And I just said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I knew there was one rock that I had left unturned. But I knew that turning over that rock was just going to, be hard. And what was on the other side was going to be even harder because I didn't know when the killing was going to end. So I did some real soul searching, and I think leadership is about deliberate choices versus accidental, arriving somewhere. And I made a choice to go turn over that last stone, and Jim Alchin funded us, and we're building a product and shipping it. So one thing that I learned about leadership was that it's about choices and being clear about what you personally can invest. Another question that I commonly ask myself, besides can you keep doing this or is it worth doing, and are you willing to bet your job on it, is what's negotiable and what is not. It's become the favorite question that I ask myself. Is it that important that I'm going to it's a simple question. And sometimes that question can't just be answered by me. It has to be answered by my team. And as a leader, I have to decide when the decisions are mine and when the decisions are my team. So I lied, actually, when I said that was the last time the project got killed. So in January, my management chain said that they were going to absorb us into a different product group and essentially kill the project. Now, they didn't say they were going to kill the project. Kill is usually masked. But that's what would have happened. So I decided that if they did it this way, I was not going to be a part of it because the vision wouldn't actually happen. So I decided this was non-negotiable for me. If they wanted to do it, they could go and do it, but I wasn't going to be a part of it. And I knew there was one way that I could get them to not do what they thought was right and I thought was wrong. So the way to do that was to go and talk to my team and get them to decide and see if they thought as strongly as I did about this being non-negotiable. So I went in and told them, give them kind of a view of what was happening and said, what I want you to do is go home this weekend and decide if you want to do what is being proposed or if you think that that is wrong enough that you will leave and work somewhere else at Microsoft or somewhere else. Is it worth to you betting your job on it? And I said, and I don't really want you to talk about it with each other, and I don't want you to answer as a group. I want you to individually send me email and let me know where you stand. And I will not tell anybody what your answer is, but at the end of the day, I will know where we stand as a team, and then we can make a decision that's best for us. So they did that, and Monday morning I got in, and they had all answered that it was important, that it was non-negotiable for them, and they would walk. So I went to my management chain and said, you can do this, but the whole team will leave. As a leader, that was the hardest thing to do, to say, I've made my choice, but I cannot control the situation. I now have to trust my team to be leaders and make their decision. And, they came through, thank God. I knew they would, I think. I hoped. Would you say that's accurate? I didn't know they would. But they did, and now you're going to see what we're going to start to ship. So that's my lesson about leadership. And the lesson that I learned about people is probably more, it falls right into that. In order to be successful, I've had to surround myself with the right people. The network of people, just the people that you know, your champions, people that will vouch for you, right? Your team, people that are on the mission with you. It has nothing to do with working for you, but who's on the mission with you. And then your mentors. And I have been, one of the things that has made a difference in my life is the mentors that I've had. And I've never had a situation where I've asked someone, will you be my mentor? Or they've said, I want to mentor you. I've had I call them transient mentor relationships that have meant the world. What that means is somebody will just say one thing that will change the course. And I've been open enough to hear it. And that mentorship, that one thing that they've said has changed my view. One that is just so important to me is at the beginning of my career at Microsoft, I was involved in another heavily political situation where everybody above me had gotten pushed out, and I knew that I was going to be next, and that the people that were making the decisions didn't really understand what was going on, but I felt like they were so powerful and I was powerless. So I called a GM that I used to work for in New York, and I said, what do I do? And he said, you put your head down and deliver. If you put your head down and deliver, your actions will speak louder than anything else, and you will come out on top. And he was exactly right. I've never called him for any advice again. I see him, and we have a relationship. He's great, but that is an example of a mentor that is there, but, it's a little different in terms of how we traditionally think of mentors. And then I have mentors that are completely invested in me. And that it evolves. You don't identify those people. You connect with them, and it evolves. And I think of them as coaches, right? I don't have monthly one-on-ones with them. They are there in the game with me, actually. They're like my coach. They aren't in the game, but they know the game that I'm playing. And they've probably been there before, and they have expertise that I don't. And if I don't listen to them, I am dead, right? Because I can't see the big picture because I'm on the field. And they are there all the time. When I need something, I go take a time out and I go call them, right? And I think of success really requiring that, especially at Microsoft, the way our management chains are set up, is having those mentors and connecting with people. In order to get those mentors. I think, though, one of the advantages we have as women is that, I think that every bone in our body was made to connect with people. And networking and having mentors, it's all about connecting with people. And you never know when those relationships are going to be important. And I cannot express to you how many relationships I've had that have started with some random business thing have turned into meaningful friendships in the end. So I think it's one of the things that I think a lot of people talk about the challenges in terms of being a woman in a corporation. I think that our ability to connect with people is something we totally undervalue and underuse and underestimate for ourselves. So I guess that's what I have to say. And do you want to ask questions? Or do you want to just see our stuff? What
do you guys want to do? We have demo stuff we can show you, and then we can have questions. Would you like to do that? What's that? Demo.
Okay. Laura?
Thanks.
Sure, I'll set. No, yeah. Okay, I'm not done.
I think we need to set it up. We're going to set it up, though. You're going to have to set us up, like, give the scenario.
Yeah, okay, so here's what we did. We studied this customer. We decided what, we figured out what the customer needed. That's where we started instead of the technology, which was really important for us. They need 3 things, we think. They want to socialize versus communicate. Requires more contact. I don't need to tell you guys this, Lee. But they need to socialize versus communicate, which requires deeper context to have meaningful experiences. They want to do things together versus get things done. Get things done is all about productivity. It aligns a lot with our traditional consumer. But doing things together is about socializing. They want to meet new people. This is different for 2 reasons. One is because it's driven by pure life stage. But 2, we believe that they have an ability to connect with people online. Just by they have high bullshit detectors. They can decide who to trust and who not to, and that allows them to meet friends of friends online. So at the heart of this experience is groups. People need to be able to form groups and do these things in a meaningful way. And instead of people going to the activities, people are the thing that is persistent in life. They're the thing that is most important, and those activities should come to the people. Right? The people are the things that should be at the center of the computing experience, because that's what is at the center of our life. And that is the most important thing. So we are all about putting people at the center of computing and giving them what they want. We are about those people also expressing their individuality, their emotions, right? In order to be people and have meaningful experiences, you have to be able to somehow represent who you are and express what is meaningful. So that is the model by which we prototyped a lot. And we have a V1 that is going to go to beta in December, which Melora and Asta are going to show you. And then we'll do rapid releases after that really build on it. So we aren't delivering this Uber application. We're going to try to attach to something that people are used to, right, and build on it and release it in a way that they can swallow it and understand it. And I'm sure, based on your jobs, you'll be able to see where this technology can go.
Okay. Do you want this, Laura? Do you think I need it? Yeah. No, here. No, you need it. This target that Tammy just board is one that the whole team, by the way, this has sort of become our mission. You know, she was talking earlier about having that mission and putting everybody on board. Everybody that is on our mission knows this target inside and out. And whenever we have to make hard choices, we always go back to this target. So I'll be going back to it as I walk you through our first release and show you how we're pulling things back to our mission. Right now, this is my desktop, by the way, and over there is Asta's. This is a multi-user experience, and so it really is something that needs to be demoed with multiple people. We have some people back in Seattle that are demoing with us right now as well. So on our desktops, you see we both have a girl in pink and this lemon shape. These are groups. These are groups of friends that are hanging out together online right now. And we're representing it with this graphic image so that the group can have some sense of identity. Okay? With these on the desktop, they are persistent. I can shut down, come back tomorrow, and my relationships will pop back up for me when I log in. So persistent groups on the desktop. If I roll over a group icon, I'm going to roll over this lemon, I can see who's online in the group. So right now, I've got 3 out of 4 members of the group are online. Down here below in the pink girl, I have 3 out of 3 are online. You can have up to 10 members in a group, The reason why we're starting with 10 is we're building on some new technology. It's peer-to-peer technology coming from the peer networking team. And this being, they're going to be on beta and we're going to be on beta, we're going to start with 10, go out there and see how we do for multiple reasons, and you'll see why I say multiple reasons. But first and foremost, you can imagine it's going to be performance. We want to see how far we can go with this thing. And we'll start with 10. Now, I can have as many groups as I want on my desktop, but you can only have 10 members in a group. So there's some things I can do with a group. Why would I want these on my desktop? Because I want easy access to my relationships. If I right-click on a group, you're going to see that I have some things I can do. The first being Start Music Mix. And I'll show you that in a moment. That's going to be a shared synchronous activity. The next thing I can do is send a wink, and I'll show you that in a moment as well. I can send a file. Right now, sending files is really kind of a pain for this consumer. They're doing it through IM and email. And really, you know the feeling of, I just got a cool photo, or I just found something that I really want to share with everybody. And you want to get it to everybody quickly. And you may not even want to start a conversation. So one of the cool things you can do with our app is you can just drag and drop a file onto a group. So I'm going to just send everybody my brother's resume. A little notification appeared next to it. And this it just allows me to manage my file sending. So I can see who's downloading it, who's ignoring it, and I can also cancel the transfer. Now, it's not available to anybody. Now, it requires you to be online. So only the people that are online with me will get the notification that I'm sending this file. The other things you can do with a group is you can, whoops, that's coming next. You can start a conversation, and basically what this will do is it pops up a messenger window with everybody already invited into the conversation. So I don't have to go in and start a conversation with one person and invite single people. It automatically invites everybody into it. I can add to the group. I can add members. And by the way, anybody in the group can invite anyone into this group. I can look at the history of our Wink exchanges, and I can change things about the group. Another important thing is I can close the group. I may not want to be online to this group if they're going crazy with activities. I may be trying to get a paper done. So I can say I only want my best friend to be interacting with her and have everybody else think I'm offline. So I just want to show you a wink. Winks in our product are like winks in the real world. It's a way of having a secret language, a way of gesturing to somebody, and we wanted to keep it lightweight. We didn't want to necessarily initiate a conversation. It's just a way of expressing yourself quickly to whoever's online. So I'm going to send Asta a wink, and you're going to see on both of our screens her receive it, if I can get up here. We're going to ship with, I have a little bug. This is real code, so I have a little bug. Come on up to the top. Okay, I'm going to send this wink if he'll let me. Okay, it's being crazy. So here we go. I'll just pick one. It play? Great. So it's basically a sound and animation combination. Also, you want to send me one? Any group. Here we go now. Yeah, send your favorite. So you, about the rest of you. So you see, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm doing, it pops up in front of. So I actually got, these are really easy to make. We're going to ship with a bunch of stock winks, but it's very easy. You can just go find an image, and then you can use a default sound, or you can go get your own sound, and just create your own wink really quickly. I created one from Asta and I, so I'm going to share that with everybody. This was us at a party. So it's a great way of just saying, hey, it's me, you know, or if somebody's being kind of silly, we can stick our tongues at each other. If I wanted to just be silly, I can do that. Oops, our sound's a little off. All right. The next thing you're going to be able to do is have an activity I mentioned earlier. So right now we have these groups on the desktop. We can send these winks to each other, send files. But we really wanted to give people an activity that starts to get to doing things together. So our first activity is called Music Mix. Now I've gone to the group and I click to start Music Mix, and in the group there's a little headphone icon. Asta should be seeing it too. This is letting everybody know in the group that there's an activity going on. People can come in and out as they please if they're a member of the group. So here comes Asta. You can also invite other people who aren't necessarily a member. So you can also have this sense of temporary members. And then adding music is really easy as drag and drop. You want to start adding some music? Yeah. That's fine. I want to show a bunch in there. Okay. Let me explain what's happening right now. There's this little bar that's showing you that it's downloading. And what's happening right now is this music is actually being transferred through peer-to-peer. It's getting downloaded to each of our machines. Now, what we're doing with this is a couple of things. We're transcoding it. So we're reducing it down to 64 kilobits, barely CD quality. We're also encrypting it, so there's a key on it. The theory here being, if you really want to go to all that trouble to get to this song, you could still get a better quality elsewhere. And the other thing, too, is we're applying party rules, which I'm going to show you an example of. So when I come to the party, I take my CD with me. When I leave the party, I take my CDs home. And that's what happens with Music Mix. You'll be able to be in only one Music Mix session at a time, and when you leave, those songs are no longer available to people. So this is a completely shared synchronous experience. Are you able to turn up any sound at all so they can hear? Okay. Do you have Bjort? Okay.
Do you have sound on yours?
Yeah, it should be playing. Why am I not playing? There I go. Am I happening?
I think you just restarted it.
Is that me or you? Surround sound. So right now we're listening to the same song at the same time. I can jump to a song. It'll jump for Asta. Give or take a little bit of network latency. So that's that sense of what I'm listening to is exactly what you're listening to. And we found that this kind of tug of war is actually what drives that sense of we're hanging out together, we're in the same room together. In fact, that's exactly what the customer has said to us. They say, oh, it's just like being in the same room. They totally got that. And while some people may say, well, I may want control over what I'm listening to, we found that actually it's really fun to know that you're both in the same place at the same time. And the way you do that is through this kind of tug of war. Now, if I wanted to listen to music with somebody else, we're going to apply those party rules. And I just want to show you what that looks like really quick. To start to Music Mix with another group, I can only be in one Music Mix session at a time, as I said. So you see over in this one I started, there are no controls. So in order to listen to this session, I have to tune out of this session. I just want to show you what it's going to look like. And now I can tune in over here. When I tuned out, some things happened. As I said, my songs are no longer available now. But if the song was mine that I contributed to the group and I tuned out, it will continue to play until it's done. It's just nobody could make it replay again. But if Asta was curious about the artist, she could go and find out more information about that artist. And the way she would do that, I'm going to tune back in over here. Just tune that down. She could select an artist and click this little shopping cart, and it actually takes her out to windowsmedia.com and gives her or anybody information about the artist. Okay. In the future, what we've been hearing is the customer really wants to be able to just buy that one song. They don't want to buy the whole CD. So we're looking at how can we tie in with Press Play in the future so you can actually go out there and buy the one song, and then you can listen to it whenever you want, because if that person's not there, you still own it, and you guys could imagine the possibilities with that then. All right, the next thing I want to show is our entire application is all about customization. Anybody, like I said, can change anything about the group. Anybody can add a song to the activity. They can change what we're listening to. They can also customize the experience. Anybody in the group can also do drag and drop skinning. Do you want to May. Do you have some of yours ready? It's okay. I have more. So it's a great way of just sharing your photos. And we found that this became a major activity for the customer. Not only are they listening to music, but they're sharing photos this way too. So in our future release, we're looking at actually building an activity solely around photos so that they can have their cake and eat it too, so to speak. So that's it. We have the sense of groups on the desktop. They're persistent, so the relationships can be easy to create. One of the things that you notice is when I got the presence information, I should mention, we're getting that from Messenger. So the way you get groups started is you can do that through Messenger, your Messenger buddy list. You can express yourself through winks. You can express group identity through the group icons. And then you've got a way of doing things together through the Music Mix activity, the first activity we're shipping with. And just finally, Tammy mentioned meeting new people. One of the things that's going to happen is we haven't solely focused on that in this release because serendipity will make that happen. I actually started meeting new people through these groups, and what's great about it is it's shared context. Asta's able to introduce me to people she thinks is cool by bringing them into our group. So that's how we're starting to touch on the meeting new people. That's it.
So I'm sure you can imagine how this is just a baseline and how activities and modules can be added on. How many of you have kids that use IM? All right, so one thing I'll point out is the young kids that use IM have incredibly chaotic experiences. Right? They have, for me, this feels really chaotic. There's all this stuff going on. But they have 6 IM conversations open at the same time. But this is just adding to the chaos, and we think it's something that they want. Figuring out, once we get it in the hands of users, we're really anxious to get real life feedback and figure out what needs to be changed and what doesn't. And that's why we want to get out one module first, and then start releasing additional synchronized activity modules so that we can keep pushing the envelope, but at the same time get real world learning. Do you have questions, thoughts, comments?
Two little questions. How do you actually create a group? You in Messenger? Or how do you start it up so that you get a group?
It's really,
Great.
really simple.
This.
If you want to create a new group, we have the little control center that I can go in and I just go create new group, and I pick people off my buddy list. I can change the image, I can change the name, and I just say, okay. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, this is totally open. Anybody can do this. Anybody can create a group, invite people in. You can't kick people out. I should mention that. You can leave. That's basically how.
10 people online at the same time, or 10 people in the group? 10 people in the group.
I should give you this.
In terms of the group of people that you work with, so how large is your group that's creating this?
And we borrow a test team.
And you said in the beginning they're high school age?
No, they're new campus grads, and then we have new campus grads that are all the PMs and the devs. And then, like I said, we borrow a test team. And then there are 3 of us that have been around. Sorry, I just put you in that category, Melora. Melora, myself, and then John Vert, who is our dev manager. And I've never shipped a product before. I bring the customer and business piece to the table, and Melora, you know what she brings, obviously. And John brings the experience of shipping product. And then thank God, he brings the experience of shipping product. And then all these new campus grads bring amazing ideas and energy and dreams. And we let them do that, and they get stuff done, and it's so much fun. One of the cliches I like to say is that they don't have a box to think outside of. Right? So that's really exciting. It brings a whole set of challenges, but it's really fun. And one of the there's a saying that goes, before a technology is introduced, you do old things in an old way. When a technology is introduced, you do old things in a new way. After the technology has been internalized, that is when you can do new things in a new way. And the people that work for me, the internet is completely internalized to them. They do not know life without it. So seeing what their dreams are is really exciting. And one of my hopes is that because they have these new ideas, and I'm trying to give them an environment where that they can have the room to bring those, to let those ideas manifest, that we too can invent new things in new ways. Other questions? Yeah.
For Macs and PCs?
Does it work for Macs and PCs? No.
You know those pesky friends do just
XP only. It works on XP only.
XP only.
Yes. I mean, we're building on technology that's V1 technology that is only on XP, so. And broadband only. Yeah, we always see ourselves pushing the envelope and therefore only working on the latest technology. So we'll be hitting that in the mobile space pretty soon. I mean, our V1 is establishing groups. The next version, we want to create history and memories for those groups and build that relationship. In V3, which hopefully isn't not that far away, we want to make sure that those groups and you're always together, right? So the mobile piece, and that's kind of how we're dividing up the process. Yes.
It seems like the concept of groups is really way more hard-walled than it is in the real world. I mean, social networks are so fluid and clusters form and dissolve.
Yes.
And yet these groups are these big persistent objects on the desktop. Do you see those two?
Yes. How do we manage the persistent groups versus the fluidity of groups in real life? You can actually have those fluid experiences. So, for example, in that launch pad that you saw, you can start any of the activities so you don't have to have a group. So, example, music is here. And then you just invite people in. And it does end up to be very fluid. And in reality, what we're already starting to see is your groups won't be 10 defined. But maybe you and your best friend have a group that you want to have history with and you want to be always connected. And then people will come in and out of there and it will be fluid. So we're trying to manage both of those things and or enable both of those things. And I think we'll learn a lot about that once it actually is being used. And if you have one thing that I know we say to you individually, if you have ideas, please tell us. But you guys are doing such interesting work and we try to be lockstep, at least in terms of Lily's group and trying to share, learning and ideas. But if other of you have ideas and learning that would be applied, mistakes you think we're making, just please don't hesitate.
One thing I was surprised to see was starting a group IM, and we know that IM is almost never used multi-person. Is that just because the barrier to entry of the IM client?
I can definitely speak to that. In all of our studies, they keep telling us they wish they had group chat, and it's right there. And so I don't know. I think they're now discovering it because that was 2 years ago. I was hearing that, and now I'm hearing, oh yeah, I group chat, and when they do it. It's the only thing they're complaining about is I just hate to start the chat and I have to invite people in individually. So this was the shortcut for them. They like the shortcut.
Good.
And this is still a UI problem in terms of our implementation. We're trying to work with the messenger teams to get them to do some interesting things so that group chat UI is more reasonable.
Well, that was my question. How does it feel when you've got this,
Feels bad.
next to the IM window?
It feels bad. Really bad. That is not how it should be, but that is the reality of the world we live in right now. I hope that in the next version that won't be the case, and the UI will be dockable and modular and personalized. So you'll have an experience where you have chat, and that's your home base, and it's connected to these modules and the group history, and it's not immersive, right? But it's connected, and that's what we're working towards. We have profiles.
Or kind of description of yourself or your...
No, we don't have profiles.
Think of as histories.
And we don't have, we do see kind of blog type applications in creating history. And we want to get that out quickly afterwards. We have some interesting ideas about identity related to mobile as well. So we're kind of trying to balance what things do we get Messenger and some other teams to implement in terms of identity, what things do we do, and when.
So what age group is most likely to appeal to, and does it appeal to boys and girls differently?
So age. We've targeted age 12 to 24. We will message it up, so if you win the older kids, you win the younger kids. What we think is going to happen is it's going to have a broad applicability. So let me give you the example from my perspective. I may not want this UI, right? I may not want the funny characters on my desktop. I may want them on my buddy bar. But I don't want to put my son's picture up on my community website and say, Mom, go look at that. I want to have a music mix container where I can put a picture in there and look at it with my mom, and we can chat, and I can say, darn, isn't he cute? Here's what he did. Here's what was happening. And, I want to have that kind of exchange. I want to feel like I'm in the same room with my mom, even though she lives, in California, not here. So we think that from a functionality perspective, it will have broad applicability, and we'll go there quickly afterwards with MSN. What was your other question? Oh, girls versus boys. We've been really very conscious about this gender issue because the feedback we get is different from girls versus boys. We know that if we win the girls, we'll win the boys. Right? Why do they have ladies' night on Wednesday? It's because all the women get in free, and guess what? The guys come. Right? So that doesn't mean we want to make it girly. So we're trying. So we want to enable this personal expression, and we want to make sure, though, that the experience isn't male, lean male in terms of only men will want it. I'm not sure that answers your question. Maybe you want to comment more. Do you have comments on that? Does that answer your question?
It's such a delicate balance. And
I was just wondering whether you would,
what's your team
whether you were
consist of?
intending this to be
What is my team?
In terms of male and
girls
female.
or even,
What would you
whether you
think?
expect it to be
I hope. I would think more female, but I would hope not.
Well, imagine. Okay, I have a program management team and a dev team. Oh, is it 50-50? I work hard. Yeah, it's 50-50, and I'm so proud of that. Right? It's almost 50-50. It might be 40-60. Because.
I'm sorry. Did you want to add more?
So we make conscious decisions that's why we know that music is more interesting to men. So music is, it's also interesting to women, but this is going to be, the guys are going to prefer music mix. The second module will be photos. We know that the girls will prefer that. Right, so we're going to make sure we're balanced. A conscious decision we made is the second thing that comes out is not going to be games, because that is skews male. So we make conscious decisions about that in order to try to keep it neutral. That is our goal.
And we know that because we've done so much prototyping and taking it out. We've got a good gauge. And the art that we're shipping with our product will be balanced in style and gender appeal. Did you want to talk about the online community, too, that there'll be that?
Have you guys found much difference in use between younger kids? I've just been amazed at how, the 12s, how much IMing they're doing.
Right.
Tested it between, the 12s and the 16s.
Have we
I'd just be interested in seeing.
the difference between age? We think that the younger you get, the more open they are to the different activities.
I would just think, too, might not type as well, so the pictures and the music.
Oh.
It's really fun.
Oh, no, they can make it
The design.
10?
10-year-old.
I think we have some hypotheses, but we don't know, and that's something that we'll want to track once it gets out there.
The enthusiasm is the same for ages, but what she was mentioning earlier was the desire and intent behind it is different. But why they're sending the wink is different when you're older and you're trying to flirt, and when you're younger and you're just having fun with your friends. Right? But the enthusiasm is the same. The art that they choose, the younger kids, that's why the art we're going to be shipping is more sophisticated, appealing to the older NetGenner. The younger NetGenner wants that. So think of it when you were 13, you were reading 17 magazine, and when you're 17, you're reading
Glamour.
Glamour. So that's how we designed it. So that's why we haven't quite. We haven't learned enough yet. I think we need to get it out there. But the initial studies, same enthusiasm, different intent.
Other questions or comments?
When do you think it'll ship?
Any questions about Tammy's career, life, or anything outside?
This is it. The product.
When do you think it'll ship, and how are you going to market it? On MTV or?
When will it ship? We will go to beta in December if all the stars align. If they don't, we'll go at the beginning of January. We will ship and call it a beta. And we will eventually ship with MSN. But before we ship with MSN, we will ship as 3 Degrees on 3degrees.com. That is associated with Microsoft, but not MSN, so that we have some space to connect with the customer and not be locked in by all the rules and kind of regulations that apply to traditional established products. Does that answer your question? No. But we see eventually that it will be bundled with MSN, and the additional functionality might come out first with us, but then it will hit MSN, and we might even do different UI that's a bit more traditional and more traditional graphics and that kind of stuff. Yes?
Is there a barrier marketing to that age group with the name Microsoft?
Is there a barrier to reaching the age group with the name Microsoft? There is a liability and there is a strength. The strength is that they believe if Microsoft does something, invest in it, they're going to keep investing in it until they get it right. So that's something that's very positive about the Microsoft brand. But they also think they have the attitude that we haven't gotten it right recently. Their attitude about our experiences, I'm sure MSN folks would debate this, our experience is that they have a little bit of that attitude about MSN, and their source of gravity for them is AOL. It doesn't mean they like AOL. It doesn't mean that that's the greatest brand, but that is their gravity. So what we want to do, and the same with Windows, I'm not just picking on MSN. So what we want to do is attach to Microsoft and also just express how we're doing things in a different way. Be authentic, under-promise, over-deliver. Communicate and connect with the customer, get their ideas, find out what they want to do, and do it in a way that they can be receptive. So I think we'll make a lot of mistakes as we go through that process because it's a new thing, but we have the license to do that, which is pretty exciting, and we're going to give it a shot.
So what's this site that you're releasing with? I don't know.
So it'll be on Microsoft WAC 3 Degrees. 3 Degrees is our beta name, our code name. And then we've also have 3degrees.com, which all spelled out, which is, it's a similar play to Xbox, right? You have Microsoft WAC Xbox and then Xbox.
I didn't know if 3 Degrees was your thing or
Yeah.
if it was something else that you were.
Yeah, that's ours. All right. Well, yes.
Just one question about, the studies that you get information from, you mentioned studies here and there. Are they usually Microsoft internal, or are they conducted by outside marketing companies for the industry in general, or for Microsoft in particular?
I'm going to answer it a little differently. The unique insight that we get comes from random research that we do versus, research conducted outside of the company. And we did some really crazy things at the beginning, like we took a dozen college students on their winter break, put them in a house for 3 weeks, and studied them around the clock with anthropologists. Fascinating. We got fascinating learning about the customer that way. We did psychographic research with we just have done a lot of random things, and we've just talked to customers all the time. I think that's where the magic comes from, is if you talk to enough of them, you can not read about them, but just talk to them, then in their environment, right? You guys especially know that in terms of doing home studies, that's where you're going to get the crystals of nuggets, the insight that are going to put us ahead of the competition. That's kind of been our strategy. All right, well, Laura and I will hang out for just a little bit longer, but thank you so much for your time. It was really fun coming and talking to you.